welcome to another edition of What's What BR. Today we have some special guests with us. We have Paul Arrigo and Karen Alford from Visit Baton Rouge with us. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Doing great, thanks.
Good to hear. We got background scenery there. I'm still sitting here in the same office, but don't have anything fancy there. So tell me, Visit Baton Rouge. For anybody who doesn't know, let's just clear the air real quick. Paul, give us the Reader's Digest version. What is it you guys, what are you here for? What are you doing? How are you helping?
Right. Well, generically, in different communities, we might be called a tourist commission, a tourist and convention bureau, a destination marketing organization. We represent a certain geographic area of, in our case, Baton Rouge, as promoting Baton Rouge as a destination for conferences, leisure travel, servicing events that come to town, pursuing events, greeting all the riverboats that come to town. We are a political subdivision of the state. There are some 60 some odd destination marketing organizations throughout the state of Louisiana. Many just cover one parish. Some carry two parishes, like Shreveport-Bossier carries those two. But we are one of several destination marketing organizations charged with bringing visitors, conventions, et cetera, to the Baton Rouge and Baton Rouge area.
So you're the voice for Baton Rouge to get those people here. People are marketing businesses. We're trying to, the restaurants are trying to pull me in. You're not trying to pull me to the restaurant. You're trying to pull the guy from Houston,
Right.
into, the
Right.
restaurant.
But
So
I can
you're
tell you,
working on behalf.
over the last several weeks, it's changed a lot that we're trying to get the locals out too, because it's important that our restaurants and attractions survive. And something I need to mention, that we are not, although we work very closely with the city, we're not a city agency. We work very closely with the Raising Cane's River Center. We're not part of them. We work with the Downtown Development District and the Mid-City merchants. We are funded entirely by a hotel motel tax. So there's no direct funding that comes from the city or from the parish to us.
So, and by and large, most people that are in hotels are, guests coming into the city. So your work is being paid by somebody else. So,
again, a visitor comes to Baton Rouge, stays in a hotel, funds us to go after more visitors to stay in hotels. We're sort of like a perpetual motion machine.
I like that. So, jumping in real quick. So, Karen, where do you fall in the perpetual motion machine?
So I handle the marketing efforts for Visit Baton Rouge, so marketing and technology. So we really make sure that the word gets out, making sure that the brand of Baton Rouge is out there to, make sure that people are aware of Baton Rouge when looking at a destination to visit.
And we've mentioned, we talk about it from a destination. I think, Paul, you hit on it. It is a destination, but the desert's a destination. You don't want to just go hang out. It's what makes it up. It's the restaurants, it's the hotels, it's the environment, that it's in.
I think that's a lot to do with our brand, and coming off of, and it's very important, coming off of a very successful LSU football season, where I think we were America's team this year, and certainly the term Baton Rouge was spread out in the media in a positive way for several months in the fall. So we recognize that there are several destinations. Each one is unique. We feel that we are a bit of all of Louisiana, a little Cajun, Creole, Old South, Florida parishes. So we think that we've got a very blended brand, and we also think that part of what we're known for is having very nice people. We're very accommodating and very much into hospitality. We love having company. It's a Southern thing.
Absolutely. I do work with people all across the country, across the globe, and you can genuinely tell the difference. When I can be on a phone conference, not even video, and I can just tell, and it's not even an accent thing. It's just the way people, the way we go through things, it's the yes ma'am, the no ma'am. It's the, it's kind of just the way you were raised, and it's also, it seems that we slow it just a little bit down. We'll take time to talk about, how's your mom? how's your family, and that things make a difference. You don't get that, other
We
areas.
visit. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's part of what we are, and I think it's very unique, and certainly the brand Baton Rouge, the name itself is so unusual. When you think of a state capital, it's not Jackson, Austin, Montgomery, Madison. It sounds like people's names, but the name Baton Rouge is just the most unique state capital name, and one of the most unique city names, I think, and it's sort of cool. And I think along those lines, we're very proud of having that name, Baton Rouge. And it's French and it means red stick. And when we travel, people ask us, how are things in Baton Rouge, thinking that we all talk with that Cajun accent. And you can tell with the way I'm speaking, I'm not from Baton Rouge. I'm from that suburb of Baton Rouge called New Orleans.
Exactly. So what's going on, Karen? You're kind of in that marketing, cogwheel, what's been going on with you guys lately? Obviously, the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room is, we're all in the middle of this COVID-19. It's affected everybody that I've talked to. Businesses have all had their disaster recovery plans for when the server went down or if their, office burned down. I've yet to meet anybody that had a pandemic plan. I don't know if you guys were different, but nobody's done it. And so what are some of the things that how have you, and it's, the word pivot, I'm getting tired of saying it, but how you guys, what have you guys done, lately?
Yeah, so great question. And no, we were not different than any other person. We did not have any prior knowledge that this pandemic was coming. We didn't, use our fortune teller to get that information. However, we went into emergency mode in mid-March, just like everybody else did. And our entire industry was turned upside down at that point. Travel immediately came to a halt. And we kind of said, well, what is our purpose? What do we do? And really, it was to be more local. We are a part of this community, and that is exactly the mode that we went into, is how do we do what we do on a daily basis to bring visitors to the city, to turn that message locally, and how do we make people feel a little more comfortable about the city that they live in, and how do we deliver the message of who is open, who's not open, where is it safe to go, and just providing those ideas to locals that kind of spin the message of, there's nothing to do, there's a lot to do, and here's everything you can do while still staying safe and observing social distancing. So the message became local.
I think Karen hit the nail on the head. There's a saying in our industry now that's relatively new. If a community is a great place to live, it'll be a great place to visit. If it's a great place to visit, it will be a great place to do business in and a great place to bring business to. So we work hand in hand with other organizations, Baton Rouge Area Foundation, Baton Rouge Area Chamber, et cetera. We understand that we've got to have this product, Baton Rouge, that we promote out market. We're the technically, when somebody comes here, we're exporting business. We're bringing business here. And the unique thing about a traveler is they leave money behind. They don't use our schools. They'll use our roads. We hope they don't use our police or our fire department. It's not like they use our services. It's like money that's brought into our community, and it's spread around. It's spread around on all different levels: semi-skilled, unskilled, and skilled labor. All are involved in the product and the service of Baton Rouge.
And I think it's, I was thinking about something while you were, talking about it. It's, with these people coming in, with, people, I find people that, they're traveling in, and I've bumped into people before just waiting in line and, where are you, where are you from? What are you doing? And I've even caught myself. I'm like, oh, you're going to do what? Oh, I didn't even know we had that. I didn't know that was an option. I think a lot of times because, I can remember as a child before, the maps, and I was younger. I remember, my mother and my aunts and uncles, everybody would sit around a table, and it's kind of a running joke now, but I remember they used to try to decide where we were going to go on vacation. And I would hear them, which I've learned now, but I would hear them before as they were laughing, joking, saying, well, we can't go there. That's 8 inches away. or that's 12 inches. Well, there's no way we have to stay within 6 inches. And they were kind of measuring on the map. But I bring it up because we never really looked at our own like in our own backyard. And like right now, that's where we've got to be kind of as a community. In the tech space, I've got involved with different, tech companies. We have an expression that we use, if you write software, if you use different things, it's the expression called, you eat your own dog food,
Right.
so, visit where, you've got a lot of things to do here that you guys can, express to people right now. We may not be, importing those people in and, the tourists might not be there, but we still have some of the best restaurants, around. We've got some of the best things to go see. I'm looking at your backgrounds. Those are public areas. You just walk around, there.
Very affordable destination too. And we were having a conversation with a group of people a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about the recovery of Baton Rouge, which I spun to the rediscovery of Baton Rouge, because like you said, so many of us are not aware of what we have, not only the older attractions. I see Karen's got the old state capitol behind her. I've got the planetarium, but things like Top Golf and Main Event and the Electric Depot and all the new restaurants we have. How many of our locals have not experienced any of that? And how many of our locals can invite out-of-town friends and family to visit Baton Rouge at the appropriate time? We've got so much here. Like I said, we're accessible with interstate. We're affordable as a destination, hotels, attractions, restaurants, etc. And we're a pretty good place to visit.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of things that you can't, I know we're all, we're pick the phase, phase one will, depending on when you're watching this, we could be phase two, we could be phase three, but there's still, I know people that, live in cities that it's amazing. They just think, the fact that we could go drive down and go walk and just look at the river, walk the river walk, it's beyond it because they don't have that. We've grown up with that. We appreciate, we hear people complain about driving over the bridge, and,
Right.
sitting in, those kind of things. But it's like, those are things that you're complaining about that people would love to do, to be able to just go walk around, that there's still things you can do now and take some time. As I've been telling everybody, we talked with, one person, they said, we've been given the gift of time, with this. And I think that's important to where, kind of the way I was talking about it is before I'd heard that is we have the ability to do kind of our someday maybe list. We all have, this is the stuff that we need to do. You guys have, I was kicking around on the website before we jumped into here. It's the amount of information that you've got on the website, just there where somebody can go in and say, you know what, maybe I can't go do it today, but I can do it, next week, or where it is. Make that bucket list, because not only is it going to be an experience for you, but it's going to help the community here. That.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And as Karen will attest, our research indicates that the number one reason people visit Baton Rouge is to visit friends and family. Being a state capital and with the petrochemical industry we have in two major universities, we all know people from somewhere else, particularly with the universities and the industry. And when you look at, people, our neighbors, what have you, very diverse community that have friends and family elsewhere, whether it's through connections with universities or the industries or what have you. So I think that's another asset that we have, that the ability to draw out-of-town friends and family. And at the appropriate time, that's something we're going to be going after, as well as the nearby drive-in market. We recognize that air service will not be what we want it to be for the immediate future. So we're going to concentrate on that drive-in market, both for leisure travel and, of course, for the conventions, conferences, and events that we host.
What are we too early? Are you hearing, different things with, you've talked obviously probably, from the hotels and, when you talk about those conventions, is there any information that you're kind of hearing? Is there a pulse, or is it still that needle's, just back and forth all over the place right now?
Actually, the hotel occupancy has, not only in Baton Rouge, but nationally, has ticked up a little bit. Now, that's for a variety of reasons. We think business has picked up, and also there have been some temporary closings of different hotels that have lowered the inventory. But we see a slight uptick right now, and specifically with this phase one, with people getting out to restaurants. Many of our attractions are open. I think a selling point too is this weekend, Labor Day weekend, and I just read that if you're driving to Florida, you're going to get quarantined for 2 weeks if you're coming from Louisiana. Well, don't go to Florida. Spend your staycation here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and see what we have. We've got some great hotels. We've got some great restaurants. We've got some great attractions.
Wow. I hadn't heard that one, yet, but I've heard it's the new times that we live in. So, with that, you're seeing a little bit of an uptick. I've talked to a lot of people. It seems like that uptick has happened, last week and this week. It's been some of the best weeks, that we've had. What do you guys, do you have any plans, anything coming down the road? What's kind of that next, when you guys are sitting down going, okay, we're winding down this week. We've had 2 little better weeks, it's, I talked to somebody the other day. They were saying that they've never been so happy to see such low numbers, but the movement in the numbers, was so exciting, to be able to see. So, is there anything, what's the next week? What's that look like for you guys?
That's a marketing question.
Sure. So this is something, Brandon, that we're following very closely, because one of the things that we do understand is that in order to bring visitors to the city, we have to make sure that locals feel comfortable with their own city before we can bring others to the city. And so we really are monitoring, we're talking to businesses every day of the week, and just kind of really understanding, so what does business look like? What has changed, And it's a slow and steady crawl, to be honest with you here. I think there's a lot of concern, as I think there should be. But I think the positive news is that the numbers are increasingly inclining. So that is really good information. And I think, next week, the next couple of weeks, we may be in a different phase. We may be inching toward a new phase. That's all going to really impact our efforts. And the closer we're seeing to the locals becoming comfortable, that's the sooner that we can bring that regional, that statewide audience back into the city and really kind of making an impact there. So we're not quite there yet, but I do see within the next couple of weeks things changing a bit.
I was thinking, before we were getting on here, I was thinking about, the conventions and, do you guys think, or maybe this is just because I don't have any pulse on this market at all, which I don't, but do you think, my thought was, as we, people have talked about, well, what's going to happen with trade shows? What's going to happen with conventions? Obviously that's a big question, but I have to believe, I don't think that whole market is just going to evaporate. I think it'll come back, but I was thinking we might be in a really good place because we do have some really good attractions. We are reasonably easy to get in and out of. And when you look at bigger cities like, New Orleans or New York they've got just such a high concentration of people that it might be, it's like, hey, I want to go to a show, but I don't want to go to, some of these huge conventions, that are in New York or in Las Vegas, that maybe some of your smaller markets like Baton Rouge tend to get booked a lot faster because there are other things to do. Is that, I don't know what I'm talking about, or is that a possibility that people are talking about?
Well, I think from a convention point of view, you're absolutely right. And with the distancing, that's going to all change. How much longer that's going to be in play, we don't know. But what we've got here is for a city our size, some relatively large meeting areas that conferences can be held, both indoors and outdoors. I think there's going to be some different activities that we're going to see where you might see gatherings held outside or in tents or in parks or what have you. When you take downtown, particularly with the whole Greenway and all of the green space we have downtown, looking at Karen with the stage downtown. So that's going to be an option. I think the River Center is going to play a part in this, particularly with those meetings that need a lot of space, even though they don't have a lot of people in attendance. So I think the convention and meeting market will be a little slower behind. The first market we anticipate is corporate travel, because for 2.5 months, almost 3 months, the commerce has not connected face to face, really face to face with each other. So we think the business traveler will be the first to come on board. But we also see leisure, because there's pent-up travel, pent-up demand for travel. We're getting into that time right now. You're going to have a relatively short summer season if school normally, if school starts on time. So we hope that things will open up within the next couple of weeks, that we can pursue that leisure travel. We do see events coming back on. We hope in the fall. We've got a full football season. We hope in the fall we'll have some of our postponed events and festivals coming on board, because that's a big attraction too, to bring folks to Baton Rouge. So we'll just have to see how things go. But certainly conventions, those that have canceled, we're trying to rebook for future dates, trying to get them to postpone for maybe into the fall, or trying to get them to come back to Baton Rouge on a definite basis. So we've got a staff that's diligently and been very busy trying to really rebook business.
Yeah, I can imagine that's hard for you guys. I've talked to a lot of companies. They have their sales teams, and a lot of the sales teams get deflated where they're like, "Yo, people aren't spending money right now." But you guys are in that business of like, "Hey, come to Baton Rouge, come bring your event here." So it's got to be different conversations, and how that works. Is that, are you guys seeing that people are even, are people talking, or is it like, hey, it's still too early and it's just, hey, touching base with people?
I think it's a combination. We've had some success in rebooking some conventions. Some are on standby, not knowing if they would have a 2020 convention at all. Because when you get to a point, you get out of that year cycle, which could be challenging. You can't have a conference in the fall and then again in the spring. And most of the spring business, or all of the spring business for the most part, have been postponed or canceled. So, we're looking at booking some business into 2021 and 2022 as far as the conference and conventions go. Sports business is going to be big for us too, talking about tournaments, because that's outdoor space. And with the demand for a certain amount of space to accommodate people at, let's just say 25% today, maybe one day it'll be 50% of capacity. Well, you won't have that challenge with outdoor tournaments, soccer, baseball, etc. So that's something we're going to be concentrating on too in the immediate future.
Yeah, I think, when you said tournament, my mind just kind of immediately, jumped. A lot of people are thinking, LSU sports, Southern sports, big conventions, but there's soccer tournaments, there's these baseball tournaments, and these guys bring an incredible amount of people into the community.
And during the season we have activity along those lines, and it, depending on the sport, it brings families, it brings extended families. People come in and enjoy the city, and the kids play, and of course with that comes the grandmothers and grandfathers and moms and dads and sisters, etc. So that's certainly a market that we've been fortunate with, and hopefully in the future we'll continue to have success.
So tell me, are there any conversations? We talked about local community, local people helping, restaurants going out supporting, and kind of eating your own dog food, as we said. Is there anything for, that business owner here who's, like, hey, maybe you thought of, or maybe you were running your, convention somewhere else, or maybe you were trying to do something, or like, hey, why don't you just do it here, in Baton Rouge?
I've been in this business 45 years, and for 45 years in this business, I have been preaching to, if you hold leadership in an organization, it could be a fraternal group, it could be a garden club, it could be a trade association, a professional society. Why not invite that group to Baton Rouge, particularly if you hold leadership in those organizations. And when you look at LSU, Southern, and the industry here, so many of those employees hold leadership in, be it the Magazine Publishers Association or Southern Press Association. So many of us have leadership roles, and it's very easy to say, hey, we want to host you in Baton Rouge. From a corporate point of view, yeah, that would be a lot more, short term, where if you're going to have a sales meeting or bring in all the different bank branches, branch managers, yeah, let's do it in Baton Rouge. And we do encourage locals not only to invite out-of-town friends and family, but to invite their organizations to convene in Baton Rouge.
It's funny you mentioned it, and shame on me. I never thought about it, actually. And I'll say it, admit it. I sit on the board for the, Parenting Media Association, which is, and I've said in those, board meetings where they're saying, where are we going to go? And we're rattling things off, and I've never raised my hand and said, why don't you come to Baton Rouge? We've got these things to offer. It didn't occur to me. And I guess the first thing I'm thinking with this is, and this originally I thought would be just a quick little glaze over question, but you've got, banks, and you've got businesses, and you've got mortgage companies. You've got all these people that have had their people distributed, and some of these people are headquartered here, and some of them are regionally here. And it's going, hey, you don't need to do the big convention. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Why don't you, you've been on Zoom for 2.5 months. By the time we're, through this, it might be, 3 months, 4 months. Why don't you bring that team, even if it's a small group, a lot of, a whole bunch of 20-man teams, women teams make a world of a difference. You can start making an impact here.
20 rooms to a hotel, I'm just saying like 100-room Indigo. 20 rooms for that Indigo means the difference of being in business or not. And when you look at the leadership that we've got here between, LSU, Southern, all the different societies they're associated with, fraternity groups, religious groups, and we touch every market you can imagine. We've got salespeople working minority market, business associated with Southern University, religious conferences, family reunions, engineering, scientific, educational, every industry imaginable. We're working to try to bring their conferences and their conventions to Baton Rouge.
And I think you could say, as I mentioned, using myself for example, I sit on a board, so I'm only a voice, and I don't, run that. But when it comes to my companies, or when we've got people that live here and they have their own companies, well, you're making that decision. If you're going to decide we're going to all meet on Zoom, great. If we're all going to meet, at the office, more power to you. But when you make that decision and say, we're going to go down and meet in New Orleans because it's easy for everybody just to fly into New Orleans, you're pulling away from, your city, fly into New Orleans, fly to Baton Rouge, wherever you want to fly, but, bring it here, make it easier on yourself and help the community. And I guess where I'm going is, and I'm going to jump on a limb here, hopefully it's solid, but you guys can help with that, even on the small side of things, right? I'm sitting here in my mind going, man, if I got to put this on, I'm not a big guy. I guess I just got to tell everybody, hey, why don't you go stay, at this hotel,
That's what we do. That's exactly what we do. We help you with the planning, the selection process, and there's absolutely no charge for this. We have a department called Destination Experience, where they will give you some ideas how to upgrade or do events or activities associated with your conferences that are really cool. Whether it's a crawfish boil, a second line, bands, we've got access to all of that. And you hit the nail on the head. There's got to be a certain pride in this community to bring conferences here. Now, New Orleans is easier to fly into, no question about it. But you're an hour and 10 minutes away from New Orleans Airport, even though Baton Rouge Airport is a very easy airport to navigate. Okay, so you're an hour and a half from New Orleans. You could live in Houston and be 2 hours from the Houston Airport. When you look at nationally, that's nothing. That is nothing. And even most of our business too, regional conferences are drive-in. So it's so much easier. So we're looking forward to having that convention in Baton Rouge. It's called the Parent Magazine Association.
Yeah, it's the PMA. We'll have to definitely get talking about that one because we have a convention that's been rescheduled. So,
Sure.
So with that, I guess, to point out, and I think, state the obvious, it's nothing for us on Baton Rouge to get, it's across town, everywhere is 20 minutes away, unless you hit, some traffic, and thank God we hadn't had any of that lately. But even like we were saying, hour and a half out of New Orleans, if you live in Dallas, telling somebody you land in Dallas and you drive an hour and a half just to get home in Dallas, these bigger cities, people are used to that. It's not that big of a deal. We talk about like, got to go all the way to New Orleans, or I've got to go to drop somebody else. And a lot of places that's normal. So, you can book something here.
Right.
And I guess we're, and to kind of, to skip that and jump into it though, even on the small scale, we've done, small events. We brought people, I wouldn't by means call them conventions, but we're just saying, here's the dates. We'll see when you get here, versus it'd be a whole lot easier. It'd probably look a lot more professional from my side to be able to work with you guys. And
Absolutely.
Then I could put an itinerary together, tell my guests, even if it's 10 of them coming in for a meeting going, here's the itinerary, here's the hotels that you should book, here's some entertainment that we've got put together. And I don't have to do that, or my staff doesn't have to do that. You guys are doing that, right?
Absolutely. And on top of that, if you've got an event, let's just say for the sake of argument, because we know you're going to bring the conference to Baton Rouge, it's just a matter of time. Let's say it's in the fall or spring, and it encompasses a Friday for whatever reason. We can say, okay, we just found free entertainment for you on Friday, live after 5 downtown. So instead of having your cocktail party, go out there, enjoy live after 5, maybe have your refreshments out there. And we know about all of these events going on. It's important to us that not only the conference or convention or group, and let me tell you, nothing's too small for us to pursue. Nothing's too small. And if it's, if we've got you coming in, we want your experience as a attendee to be enhanced. We want you to go back home saying, wow, we want to overpromise, we want to underpromise and overdeliver. And a perfect example of this is last summer we had the Press Women's Association convention, and we blew them away. And they went back home and wrote about Baton Rouge. Just like your association, we go back to the different cities, Dallas, wherever your membership is, and they'll say, hey, here's a 3-hour tour to Baton Rouge. So we look at the ancillary advantages of having groups like the Press in town.
I'm thinking, going back to the, kind of how it looks, professional and less work for me. If I've got a group, coming in, if I've got a business, and we're trying to get back to business, right?
Right.
And so we're bringing a group, if I'm running a company, if I've got a deal, I might be bringing, 3 or 4 stakeholders in, I can reach out to you guys and you'll kind of, here's the hotels, here's the agenda, here's things to do. We can load them up, and I'm kind of sending them this, 2-page doc and it looks like I've really got it together. But there's a couple other things, perception, is reality for that company. It's that company's now seeing that you took the time to really make sure that you didn't just tell them to go to Priceline and book hotels. You're telling them, here's some people in our community. You're aligned with a brand, Visit Baton Rouge, that they can see. You're loading them up with things to do, and they're more likely. It's like, hey, I'm not asking you just to come to sit and listen to me pitch you a deal. I'm asking you to come enjoy, your time, in our city. Maybe bring, a child, bring a kid, because there's a lot of activities. There's more to us than just business. It's a relationship, and I'd like to do these things with you, with our team, and it turns into an experience. And then, by the way, you're going to have a 2 or 3 hour meeting and hopefully close a deal. It would seem like that'd be a smarter way to do it.
You hit the nail on the head. You said your team. What is the advantage of you bringing that conference to Baton Rouge? Well, you can have as many of your attendees or many of your team attend at no travel cost, 1. 2, the networking opportunities that they will all learn. It just wouldn't be the CEOs, hobnobbing with the CEOs. Just like we just had a big travel convention a week before we had to shut down. I think it was the first week in March that we had not only the networking, but the marketing ability. But there's a certain pride that you bring in the community. And I'll tell you, we're seeing it here in Baton Rouge. I would like it to approach the pride that New Orleans has in itself. They've got a love affair with themselves there, and Lafayette. But I think it just means so much to bring business here and the economic impact that you would have. We're talking about I think last year, conferences that we pursued approached $50 million, economic impact here.
That's real numbers. And like you said, if you can go and fight to get your conference here from, in your organizations, or bringing in, just those regional managers, those, people, your whole team gets that benefit. So you're saving, on travel. I've read some old statistics, and they, it's, what do they say about statistics? 67% of them are all made up. There's some value that comes for every person that attends. So if you turned around and said, well, hey, we're going to go to this convention in Miami. Okay, well, you're going to spend $15,000 sending, your leadership team. If you were to send your whole team, maybe you're going to spend $100, to get them over there. So yeah, you might save $100, but then if you're getting 2.5 times that, back, that's a $250,000 decision by bringing it here versus being, a $15,000 decision to go there. Now, there's a lot of factors that move, and I went fast on that. But long story short is there's a big benefit to where people should start thinking and take some pride and say, hey, when these things do start opening back up, and I guess I'm harping on it because it's what you guys do all day, but in the back of my head, conventions and the exhibits, everybody has said, pause, postpone, we'll figure it out. And so hopefully there's somebody watching that will turn around and go, because we know you have to go back into a meeting. You're going to get back on a call and they're going to say, what do we do? Where do we, put this? Do we want to do it again? And now would be the time to step up and say, hey, throw your hat in the ring. Baton Rouge has a lot to offer. It's
like
not,
said,
don't be selfish just because you want to go someplace else, and stay there. Bring the deal here, close your deal, save some money, and then go spend it on, your own personal travel if you need to.
And there's no meeting is too small for us to pursue and to service. And it's important in the case of your association that those folks go back home with a good feeling. And every convention that comes to town, there's something positive that comes out of it. We had the police mountain bike convention a couple years ago, and our police mountain bike people got to learn from the attendees from throughout the country. So they got to learn best practices, et cetera, how to handle visitors, tourists, et cetera. So every meeting is important to us. But I think immediately Karen hit the nail on the head. First, the corporate business has got to come here, but then the leisure. And it's very, very important that we pursue that.
Yeah, and I'll put it, again, personal example. I went, was it last year? Rarely, I do a fair amount of travel, and it's business. I'm in, I'm out, and don't do too much. I went to, and I love my city, Baton Rouge, but, I went to Vancouver, went up to Canada, went up there, and the group we went with, very similar, had kind of the itinerary, here's what we're doing, and here's where we're meeting. And when you're not meeting, go do these things. Here's where you can do, just like you said, it's what made me think about it. I left because I was, quick turn, in and out, but it's on my list of, I want to go back and bring, some family there. That's what we need to do, here in our community as well. Not just, maybe they can't experience everything on that one trip, but if we can give them the taste, to where they're going to want to come back. So
that's why we're so proud of having so many riverboats stop in Baton Rouge, because you're talking about a very affluent group of visitors coming into Baton Rouge and spending several hours, maybe as much as almost a full day, seeing what we have and going back to their communities and praising what they've seen here. We went to Baton Rouge and we saw this, we did that. Whether it's all the conventions, the same thing. 2025 we'll have all the bowlers coming back, and they go back home and they say wonderful things about their time in Baton Rouge. So yeah, I think any visitor that comes to Baton Rouge has the potential to be an ambassador.
Gotcha. Well, are we missing anything? We've covered a lot of ground, and I know you guys are super busy and we're trying to keep up, with things. Is there anything that we're missing there? Anything that, messaging we're going to try to get out, for anybody?
I think one of the most impressive things that we've seen during the stay-at-home period that's, something we'd like to continue to see more of is just the amount of activity locally. People are really getting out. They're getting a chance to explore their own city, and don't let this be a stopping point, right? Continue to do that. There is so much to see and do, and I think that can continue into the summer and into the fall for sure. And then, of course, bring people here to explore that with you.
Absolutely. Paul, what do you think? Are we missing anything? Are we forgetting anything?
No, I think it's important that we were very proud of a football team just a few months ago. And I think we've got to be as proud of this city. And I got to tell you, we as a community have handled this pretty well. I think we've all followed the rules. We're back open on a limited basis. We've got shift of people coming in and out, so there's no overexposure between the groups we've got coming in and out. We're looking forward to when we have a full group back at one time. But I would love to see this community continue the pride that we had just a few months ago. And hopefully we'll have the same pride this year with the football team, be it Southern, LSU, or both. And let's realize that, you never met anybody from Texas that didn't think Texas was the greatest thing in the whole world. My home city of New Orleans has a love affair with itself. I think this community has to have the same feeling about itself that it deserves.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll see a lot of that. We've over the, between, the floods, the hurricanes, now this, we've all I think that's building. Like you said, I've felt it. I've, lived in New Orleans. I've, felt some of that, in Baton Rouge is here, but it's turning. I think we're turning. I think, the city's done wonderful things with downtown. It's a place to go. It's a place you can just go spend a Sunday afternoon and walk around. I think, and people just need to tell that story. And they need to tell, come on in. We can do, even if it's, a leapfrog, even if it doesn't have to be your whole trip. It could be come in, 2 days early. Let's spend some time, here, and then we'll head off, and go there. So, well, guys, go ahead.
We had in 2018, or was it 2019, 7.2 million visitors came here for a one-day visit.
Wow.
That's like 10 times the population of Baton Rouge, or even more. 15 times the population came here for a one-day visit.
And if they spent $20 while they were here, they dropped it and left.
Oh, I can assure you they spent more.
Right. Well, look, I think this is great. I've been enlightened, didn't realize how much there was. I didn't even know that you guys, I could call up and say, like I said, we've done some of our own stuff. So we'll be talking on some of the things as we, plan and put things, moving forward. And hopefully other people will, as well, to realize that, hey, you got a business to run. You got a million things to do. You want to plan all this, or, make a phone call, that can make, you guys can make their lives a whole lot easier.
Absolutely.
So, well, look, Paul, Karen, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you jumping on. I'd love to have you guys come back, kind of tell us an update, as we start seeing some of these things. I know we're kind of in that gray area right now where we don't actually know. I know you guys will be some of the first to know, kind of what's going on, what those hotel numbers start looking like. Those are some telltale signs. We talked with BRAC, the other day, and they're getting some real-time reporting on, gas and, how much people are spending. And, I think if we can start pulling some of these numbers together, we're at a point where someone told me the other day, all the rules have changed. Everything's out of the, so, somebody asked me the other day, like, well, what's the forecast, for Q3 and Q4? I was like, to be here. That's the forecast. The forecast is to be here. I don't have an idea. I don't have any metrics. I can't pull the last pandemic. So we'd love to have you come back on and just, as you see some things and just, it's just sometimes a bit of encouragement. Hey, hotel, they're still ticking up. People are coming to hotels. We're starting to see, there's more chatter about, events and things like that coming on. So if you would, we'd love to have you down the road.
We'd love to be back.
So, well, look, I'll let you guys get back to your day. It is a Friday. It's a beautiful day out there. I think we've got some weather, but I've upset a couple people throughout the shows on Fridays where I say, have a good time, go to church online this weekend, or if you can sneak in, do it, but oh well. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.